Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're opening up a file that sits right at the intersection of, well, technology, law, and some pretty big picture economics.
Yeah.
We're talking about the European internal market for data.
Ah, the white whale of the EU digital strategy.
It really is, isn't it? The ambition is just massive, a
Yeah.
single fluid market where data can move freely to drive innovation. But let's be honest, if you look at the landscape today, market is a very generous word.
Oh, absolutely. It's less of a marketplace and more like a collection of, walled gardens and totally disconnected bunkers.
Exactly, a fragmented mess.
It is. You have data in old servers, you've got SaaS platforms that don't talk to each other, and if you actually want to build something useful across sectors, you're just looking at a complete nightmare of custom integrations.
And that friction, that's what kills the dream, right? If you spend 90% of your budget just building pipes to move the data, you have nothing left to actually do anything smart with it.
Precise.
So today we're unpacking a solution called Tritom. The sources describe it as a data intermediation service. Now, that sounds a little bureaucratic, I know.
A little, yeah.
But the mission here is pretty bold. They claim to act as a federating service to finally solve this fragmentation, but without forcing everyone into some giant central database.
And that word federating, that's the key unlock here. The old way of thinking was all about consolidation. Let's put everything in one big data lake.
Right.
Tritom is saying, no, stay where you are, keep your data where it is, but let's build a layer that lets all these independent systems act like they're one cohesive ecosystem.
Okay, so to really get how Tritom pulls this off, we need to, I think, dismantle the architecture. The sources break it down into 3 layers, and I want to walk through them in order, starting from what the user sees and going deeper.
Good plan.
We have the business layer, the visible marketplace, then the legal layer, which is arguably where the real fiction is, and finally the technical layer, the engine room.
That's the right roadmap. Most tech companies lead with the engine room, but with European data markets, if you don't get the business and legal incentives right first, the best tech in the world just won't save you.
So let's start at the top, layer 1, the business layer, and specifically the problem of visibility. The sources draw a sharp contrast between Tritom and what they call the API world. You've called it a dark room. What do you mean by that?
Well, think about how you integrate data today. Let's say you're a logistics company and you want weather data. You have to first know that a specific weather data provider even exists.
Right, you have to Google them.
You Google them, you email them, you ask for their API documentation. It's all manual, word of mouth.
There's no catalog.
Exactly. There's zero visibility. Unless you already know who the players are, you're just stumbling around in the dark. There's no market where you can see supply and demand.
And Tritom flips the lights on.
That is the core idea of the business layer. Tritom visualizes the market. It gives you a UI where you can actually see the actors, the supply, and their needs, the demand. It turns a technical problem into a visible marketplace.
So I can log in and see, oh, here's a sensor company in Finland offering vibration data, and here's an AI startup that needs that exact data.
Correct. And that visibility is just crucial. You can't have market dynamics, pricing, competition, innovation if you can't even see the products on the shelf.
Speaking of the shelf, the sources mention that Tritom isn't trying to force one interface on everyone. They've recognized that the person building the tech and the person owning the data, they're often very different people.
Right. And this is where they split the interface into Tritom Enterprise and Tritom Essential.
Okay, let's break those down. Who's Tritom Enterprise for?
Enterprise is for the heavy lifters, system integrators, big tech firms, the organizations with their own IT teams and server rooms. They use Enterprise to build out clusters, create data products, generate the connectors. It's the command center.
So that's the IT crowd, but then there's Tritom Essential. And this is the one that really caught my eye because it seems to address a huge gap. The example they keep using is farmers.
It's a perfect test case. A modern farmer generates a massive amount of data from tractors, soil sensors, drones, weather stations.
All kinds of stuff.
But here's the kicker. The farmer doesn't usually own a server.
Right. They're not running a data center in the barn.
No. Their data sits in all these different SaaS platforms, the John Deere cloud, the drone software. The farmer has data rights, but they don't have the files on a hard drive they can control.
So Tritom Essentials for them.
Precisely. Essential is a simplified interface for the data owner. It lets that farmer log in, see all their data assets in one place, and just manage permissions. They can authorize, say, a crop insurance company to use their soil data without ever touching a line of code.
That feels like such a critical bridge. If you exclude the non-technical data owners, You lose, what, half the value in the economy?
You do. And you also violate the spirit of the Data Act, which is all about empowering the user. If the tools are too complex, those rights are pretty much meaningless.
Okay, before we leave the business layer, we have to talk money, the business model. I mean,
Yeah.
we've seen platforms try to be the middleman before. Usually they take a cut or a charge per gigabyte.
And that's where you get the metered taxi problem. In most cloud models, you pay by volume. The more data you send, the more you pay.
Which it disincentivizes usage. It punishes you for being successful.
It kills the ecosystem before it even starts. If I have a sensor sending data every millisecond and I'm paying a fraction of a cent per transaction, I'll go bankrupt. So I won't share the data.
So how does Tritom handle this? I saw a phone operator analogy.
Right. Think about your internet plan. You pay a flat license fee for the connection. You don't pay for every word you say.
Okay.
Tritom applies that logic. You pay a license fee for the connector, not a transaction fee for the data volume.
That's interesting. It completely changes the incentive structure.
It does. Because if it doesn't cost me extra to send data to 10 clients instead of one, I might as well create a standard data product that anyone can subscribe to.
Instead of building 10 custom expensive pipes.
Exactly. It encourages standardization. It encourages volume. It aligns the business incentives with the goal of the Data Act, which is to get more data flowing.
Okay, so we have visibility, we have interfaces for different users, and a flat rate model. But now we hit the wall that stops most of these projects. Trust. Let's go down to layer 2, the legal layer.
The invisible layer.
But maybe the most important one. The sources make a big deal about an approval they got in January 2024 from Traficom, the Finnish communications agency, under the Data Governance Act, the DGA. Why should someone outside of Finland care about that?
Because the DGA is the European gold standard. This isn't just a startup saying, trust us. This is a regulated status. It means they've been audited against really strict neutrality and security requirements.
So it's like the difference between a friend holding your money and a bank holding it.
Exactly. For large companies or government entities, that regulatory stamp is often the difference between a maybe and a signed contract. It's a baseline of reliability recognized across the EU.
Okay, so that's the baseline. But the day-to-day operation relies on a rule book and contracts. I saw this concept mentioned, the sticky contract.
Yes, this is fascinating.
It sounds almost like magic. How does a contract stick to data?
Well, look at the problem. In a normal API transfer, once I send you my data, it's on your server. I've lost control. You could copy it, resell it, whatever. My terms of service are just a piece of paper.
Right. Once it's out of my hands, it's out of my hands.
Tritom's legal framework makes sure that the legal obligation travels with the data. The usage agreement remains valid even after the technical transfer is complete. The contract sticks.
But let me play devil's advocate. The sources admit this. Tritom can't physically stop a bad actor from downloading data to a USB drive and walking out the door, can they?
No, of course not. No software can stop physical fraud outside its own system. If you want to break the law, you can break the law.
So what's the sticky part then?
It's the governance. It's the club model. If you're found to have violated the usage agreement, say, by reselling data you were only meant to analyze, you are expelled from the ecosystem.
And not just a slap on the wrist.
No. Because you signed a binding legal agreement governed by Finnish law, you face real-world legal consequences.
Wow.
It turns trust from a vague hope into a managed risk with a kill switch.
That makes sense. It brings consequences into the digital world. Now let's connect this back to the user, to that farmer. One of the biggest complaints about GDPR and the Data Act is consent fatigue.
Oh, absolutely. If you have 50 devices on your farm, are you supposed to spend your whole day clicking, I agree, it's a nightmare?
So how does Tritom handle this? They talk about a service product or a wizard.
It's all about bundling. Instead of asking the user to authorize temperature sensor 1, humidity sensor 4, and so on, the service provider bundles them into a single crop health analysis product.
So I just say yes to the analysis itself.
Exactly. You authorize the service product bundle, and the wizard automatically handles the permissions for all the underlying data points based on that one business decision.
That seems to solve the tension between control and usability.
It does. It respects the spirit of the Data Act, you in control, but it removes the friction. It makes compliance usable. And honestly, if compliance isn't usable, people just click accept all anyway, which defeats the whole purpose.
All right. We've covered the market and the rules. Now we have to look under the hood. Layer 3, the technical layer. And interestingly, the sources suggest Tritom deliberately tries to hide this layer.
As they should. Complexity kills adoption. You want to drive the car, not build the engine.
The core philosophy here seems to be loose coupling. For anyone listening who isn't a systems architect, why is that a good thing?
Well, think about the old way tight coupling. If I want to connect my big SAP system to your Salesforce system, we hire a consultant to build a hard-coded bridge. It takes months. It costs a fortune.
And it's fragile. If one side updates, the whole thing breaks.
Right. Tritom uses connectors. These are like standardized endpoints. An organization generates a connector, installs it, and the sources say you can be sending data in 3 to 4 hours.
3 to 4 hours, that's unheard of in enterprise integration.
It's incredibly fast. And the beauty is you just push your data to the connector. You don't need to hook deep into the other person's system. You just deliver the package to their door.
So I push to my connector, and it handles the rest. But how does the data get to the right place?
That's the one-to-many routing principle. You push the data once to your connector. Tritom's routing engine then checks the ledger, sees who has active consent to receive this data, and routes the packets to all of them.
So if I get 10 new customers, I don't have to change my system.
No, you don't have to build 10 new APIs or send the data 10 times. You send it once, Tritom distributes it. It's highly efficient.
This brings up security. We use the phone operator analogy for billing, but the sources use a phone exchange analogy for security.
Right. Think about an old switchboard. It connects the call between person A and person B, but the operator doesn't record the conversation. They just connect the line.
Hopefully not.
Tritom works the same way. It connects the data stream, but the payload is end-to-end encrypted. Tritom sees the packet and routes it, but it never sees the unencrypted content inside.
That's a crucial distinction. It means Tritom isn't a honeypot.
Exactly. If someone were to breach Tritom, they wouldn't get the world's secrets. They'd just get a stream of encrypted traffic.
Now, there's one last piece of this technical puzzle that seems very specifically European. The infrastructure provider, Cinia Ltd.
This is very significant. Cinia is a Finnish state-majority-owned company, and they're also a shareholder in Tritom's parent company.
And they provide the actual physical servers.
The servers, the maintenance, and crucially, the connectivity. Tritom runs in security-classified server rooms inside the European Economic Area.
Why does the state-owned and physical cables part matter so much? We're in the cloud era.
Today, it matters more than ever. There's a massive focus on digital sovereignty. European industries are nervous about their data residing on U.S.-owned clouds because of things like the Cloud Act.
So having a Finnish state-backed entity owning the actual fiber optic cables is a guarantee.
It guarantees the data processing happens within the EEA under European law on sovereign infrastructure. For a defense contractor or a healthcare provider, that's often a non-negotiable requirement.
It's the European internal market in a literal physical sense.
It is. It creates a trusted environment for European data trade.
So when we step back, we have the dark room lit up by the business layer, trust enforced by the legal layer, and traffic routed securely by the technical layer. How do we put this all together? The sources use an analogy from manufacturing, the MES.
It's a brilliant comparison. In a factory, you have the big ERP system for business planning at the top and the machines on the floor. The MES, the manufacturing execution system, sits in the middle. It tells the machines what to do.
And Tritom is the MES for the data economy.
Exactly. Think of that farm again. You have all these independent machines. The weather app, the soil sensors, the accounting software. Tritom is the control layer that coordinates the flow of information between them to create a kind of virtual ERP.
So you can build a cohesive system out of scattered apps without buying them all from one giant vendor.
It's a federating service, a neutral middleman that doesn't own the data or the apps, but creates the trust layer that lets them function as a single ecosystem.
Which supports decentralization. We're not trying to build Amazon for agriculture here.
No, we're allowing all these service providers to stay independent, but giving them the infrastructure to compete with the giants.
Which leads me to my final thought for you, the listener. We have spent the last decade watching the rise of these walled gardens platforms that lock you in by holding your data hostage.
The Hotel California model. You can check out, but your data can never leave.
Exactly. But if technologies like Tritom succeed, if we can truly decouple the data from the application that easily, what happens to those business models?
That is the multi-billion-dollar question. If data becomes fluid, the competitive moat of simply hoarding data, well, it dries up.
And the competition shifts to who can provide the best insight, not who owns the file.
It changes the game completely. It forces companies to compete on quality, not on lock-in.
It's a fascinating future to imagine, and it seems like the plumbing is finally being laid to make something like the Data Act a reality. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
My pleasure.
We'll catch you on the next one.